All right, the finance minister should be arriving any moment. In fact, as you can see her on your screen as well, arriving now to, well, the view is split. Some people believe these are measures to boost the economic growth. In fact, the paper release suggests that it's the measures to boost economic growth. There's also this outside expectation of the maybe, just maybe, some clarity with regards to the surcharge on FPIs as well, and from an equity markets perspective, that will be a big thing. So I see a lot of people tuned in already to try and figure out what the finance ministry says. This is probably the biggest announcement that we may get from an equity market perspective in the near term, hopefully from an economic perspective in the near term as well. But let's see whether it's statements or whether there are some definitive action points that the finance ministry and the finance minister announces today. I'm sure a barrage of questions would follow post this, and we'll try and stick with this entire presentation throughout the next 45 minutes to an hour, or maybe even longer than that, depending on how much she speaks, and then the quantum of questions that are being asked to the finance ministry. We would have some questions. If you have some questions, please do try and post it, and we'll try and answer some of those once the finance minister has finished speaking and the program continues. But this is arguably the most important piece of announcements that we've been waiting for. Remember, the last 2.5 weeks, the equity markets in particular have been yo-yoing with an expectation of something coming about, and then the CEA in yesterday's session saying that maybe it might be too soon to expect some kind of delivery coming in from the government to help boost sentiment in certain sectors. So the markets have been dilly-dallying, but today Bloomberg News reported the finance minister official telling Bloomberg wires that there will be some measures being taken. The expectation was that it will come in post-Sunday when the Prime Minister comes back, but we clearly have the finance minister out here ready to give us some indication of what the press conference is all about. Economic measures, maybe market boosting measures, maybe a combination of both. Frankly, if you boost the economy, the equity markets will be happy. Let's get across now.
Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji. We have also with us Honorable Minister of State for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Sri Anurag Singh Thakur ji. Finance Secretary, Sri Rajiv Kumar. Secretary Economic Affairs, Sri Atanu Chakrabarti. Secretary Revenue, Sri Ajay Bhushan Pandey. Secretary Expenditure, Sri Girish Chandra Murmu. Secretary Deepam, Sri Anil Kachi. My warm welcome to the honorable dignitaries. Friends, the format of the conference will be like this. At the outset, there will be a presentation, and there will be opening remarks by the Honorable Finance Minister, and after that, the floor will be open for question and answer session. So now may I request the Honorable Minister to make the opening remarks.
Good evening. Is that okay? I just want to give a bit of an opening to this, as I see, much expected press conference. I'll have the Finance Secretary help me in going through the slides. I just want to give you a picture of how long it's going to be so that you're not going to be frustrated in between. There are about 32 slides. And just so that you get a picture of how we are going about this whole thing, I've arranged them in about 6 compartments. So as we move, I will alert you to the fact that I've covered one and I'm moving to the second, so that related items are grouped under one head. And even before I start doing that, just to briefly give you a picture of what's globally happening. The slide before you shows that the global situation is very clear, and the current projected global GDP growth is of about 3.2%, and probably is going to be even revised downwards. Moreover, not just one, many organizations have come out repeatedly to say the global demand is going to be very weak. So that's one broad picture. The lines there show you very clearly what is the growth globally and where India stands in that. You can see the yellow line which stands for India is still very much high above. The United States and Germany have seen inversion of yield curves, which points to slowdown in growth of consumption in these countries also. So it's not a story just of the emerging economies, but even global advanced economies are facing this. And obviously, being in India, we normally get compared with China. So as a result of the US and China trade war and subsequent currency devaluation of China, a very volatile situation has developed in the global trade. These are nothing new for you, but I just wanted to place it as a larger context with which we are speaking. And therefore, if you see the 10 major economies of the world, the size of the, what do you call, the balloons or whatever, bulbs, show the size, and from among the emerging economies, the size of the economy, and therefore where they stand globally today. So the size of the circle represents the GDP as per PPP and the current international dollar terms. So you see India again in yellow, positioned comfortably very high. The growth rate still in comparison to many of these countries high, and if anything, even compared to China and the United States, our growth rate is higher than everybody else. So let's just keep that at the back of our mind, even as we go through this. One thing I just want to draw your attention to is the important line which the Prime Minister keeps repeating because he strongly believes in it, which came out in one of the newspaper interviews that he had given earlier, saying, "We respect wealth creators." I want to very clearly put that before you, to underline that that's the spirit with which the budget was presented, and that's the spirit with which we immediately invited different sectors of the economy to come and speak to us if there's anything that they wanted to say. And they were not very quick, short consultation for the sake of it. They were in-depth consultation, some of which ran for even a couple of hours. And all our secretaries were together with me during those consultation process, which ran through a whole week. And many of you all kept following us closely on that. I was happy for that. And just so that we again put this fact in context, that this government, even from 2014, has kept reform at the top of the agenda. It's an ongoing process for us. It's not as if in this tenure, post-2019, we've forgotten the reform agenda. Not at all. Reform is a continuous process, and we are treating it as a continuing endeavor. And therefore, just so that we don't forget that even simple small things to fairly complicated levels of ease of doing business related reforms were carried out by this government in its earlier tenure, continues even now. Whether it is self-certification, whether it is looking at environment clearances, just compare the time that an environment clearance took in earlier regimes and what is happening now. We've not lost that momentum. We are keeping that high on our agenda. And about the labor reforms, taxation reforms, irrespective of any other one or two points that each one of us might have, this could have been better this way, that could have been better that way. In spite of that, we have kept that momentum, and I'm just recalling that so that we don't forget the fact and we don't treat it as, we've taken it for granted, which is good. Indian economy and the society should take for granted many things which relate to ease of doing business and ease of living too. And that's the agenda with which we are moving forward. We have not slowed down, or we have not even forgotten that. With that said, you can see in the slide that we provided here that continuously efforts are being taken by each one of the departments. Taxation, I'd like to draw your attention before I get into specifics of other things, just so that this makes the backdrop to everything which is being talked about. Is this government going to care for us? Is this government understanding what is happening in the ground? Is this government responsive enough to the changes which are coming? We are responsive. I want to assure everybody that the momentum with which we want to carry forward reform will continue. Just to draw your attention for a few things that are happening here. Pre-filling of IT returns. Revenue Secretary has been talking about it. Now, the ease with which you can file your returns will be a lot more simplified if it is all pre-filled and all that you have to do is to change any corrections that you have to make. So that strain is off you. Similarly, there will be faceless scrutiny from Vijayadashmi Day this year, which will mean that there shall not be even that one odd, I don't want to use the word, but for want of a better word, one odd over-enthusiastic officer who might go and, sit and talk about things which may be construed as harassment. That will not happen because the whole process is going to become faceless and it will be randomized. So it's not going to be that everybody is going to be a faceless scrutiny will happen. No, it will be randomized. Big data details are being utilized. So for somebody who's got to be as scrutinized, let's say sitting in Noida, his assessment might go to Assam. So faceless scrutiny is something which is coming in from Vijayadashmi Day. Reduction of GST returns and simplified taxation and also the number of forms is really being worked upon, and I surely assure you sooner the GST will come up with even more simplified and less number of forms. The refund process, I must underline here, has almost become automatic. Glitches where they exist, even yesterday when I was sitting with the tax administrators, I very clearly said the refund should be going through as a process, free flow. But if there are obstructions to it, we are very clearly, even tomorrow I'll be holding a meeting with, tomorrow Sunday morning, 11 o'clock, I'm holding a meeting with the GSTN people to make sure and identify as to where the glitches are in terms of flow of refund so that it doesn't affect people. And if we think that the system is being gamed or if there are tweakings manually being done, I've assured that we shall take action against anyone who's gaming the system. That's as regards the refund process for the GST simplification. And then finally, repeating one other thing which I mentioned along with the faceless scrutiny is risk-based approach is being taken in dealing with the taxpayers where there is high risk, where there is suspicion based on ground factual records. Action will be furthered rather than approaching everybody with a fishing expedition, as it were. So there are simplifications being done in the taxation. Labor laws, I'll just very quickly go through because fixed-term employment has been facilitated so that there will be flexibility in hiring. Contribution to the ESIC has also been reduced to 4% from 6.5%. Web-based jurisdiction-free inspections are happening. Inspection report to be uploaded within 48 hours. So there shall not be any delay, and this is enabled already. And offences, again, a very important point from the point of view of how we are approaching ease of doing business. Compounding of offences will be the priority, no other prosecution-based actions, and self-certification, which I've already said. Environment clearances, there is a single air and water clearance for MSMEs, single consent to establish a factory for MSMEs. So it's actually moving towards greater simplification and doing of business. Then corporate affairs, I just want to very quickly draw you to say that these are ongoing endeavors. We've not forgotten. I just want to draw the attention of the House before I move on to specifics, which I've already told you, 6 different headings in which I will give you my inputs. You can see that one day to incorporate a company is what is now the norm rather than an exception. Integrated incorporation forms are available. Shifting of 16 offense sections to monetary penalty has happened. So the angle that this government is going to harass people or this government is more inclined to go through prosecution is being disproved in every case that we've taken up. In every case, meaning in every act related or rule-related position, we are more in favor of compounding of an offence, and where penalty can play the role, it is penalty rather than prosecution. This is the second example where we can tell you 16 such offence sections have all been taken as monetary penalty-based rather than prosecution-based. Faster and easier approvals are being given for mergers and acquisition, some of which I'll explain further. Modifications and provisions for differential voting rights, about which I'm very grateful to the media. A lot of you all have written about it as to how that will bring in a certain sense of ownership for the people who founded the companies, and that will give them the right to retain their control of their own companies. Withdrawal of over 1,400 prosecutions under Companies Act. Again, a point where I want media. I'm very grateful that you've been writing about it. We are inclined to move from the prosecution route to a more humane approach. Repeatedly examples before you to prove that, and therefore I would want to request companies and also media to see that the intention of this government at no point wants to pursue anything in the name of prosecution. Here are the examples, concrete, which is not happening today, but over the last few weeks, we can very clearly tell you that that's the kind of step that we've taken. The IBC framework, all of you are very familiar. Even as the budget session was going on, even as all of us were focusing on budget-related matters, because of the way in which certain interpretations were given by some authorities and tribunals, we had to go through very quickly amending the IBC just so that no anomalies existed, and that has, as much as possible, we can get information that has benefited the MSMEs and home buyers. We shall ensure that we keep going in that route. So with this backdrop, I now go over to my first silo, which relates to respecting and honoring wealth creators. CSR violations, about which all of us have been hearing, not to be treated as criminal offence and would instead be a civil liability. Ministry of Corporate Affairs will review the sections under Companies Act. Government has provided companies through revised orders time for completing ongoing projects towards fulfilling their CSR obligations. So every doubt that was prevailing outside, I would want to dispel it today, that there is no intention of the government to go on the prosecution route. CSR will only be treated as a civil matter and not at all as a criminal matter. The second point there in my first silo is issue of IT orders, notices, summons, letters, etc., shall now go through a centralized system. What does that actually mean? It means on or after 1st October 2019, all notices, summons, orders, etc. by the income tax authorities shall be issued through a centralized computer system, and it will contain computer-generated unique documentation identification number. Some of you all have already started writing about it, great sense of what is coming. But what actually it means is, if there is a notice being issued at the ground level, and some amount is being claimed on an SSC, that without a central approval cannot happen, and also the amount stated there will eventually either be resolved or resolved in favor of the authorities, and therefore the tax will be paid or the claim will be settled, but the amount shall be what was claimed and not more or less. And this will be available for the assessor himself to see it so that he knows what he is being asked. If necessary, he can even quote that and complain so that there are no anomalies in paper and actual practice. So this is one way in which we think the harassment angle can be addressed in favor of the assessee. The second, any communication issued without computer-generated unique document identification number, the DIN number, that shall be treated non-est. In other words, if anybody has issued from his own level at the ground level, that notice shall not be treated actually the assessee can put it aside and say, I've not received any note, nobody's going to follow him up. Unless the notice goes through the central clearance and unless the notice has a DIN number, the document identification number, it need not be taken seriously by any assessee at all. So let's make that very clear. And all old notices, the question naturally arises, you announced this, what happens to those which were given earlier? All old notices to be decided by 1st October 2019 or uploaded again through the system. So all the notices which have been issued till now will be cleared before October 1st, 2019, within 1.5 months from now. And if in case some of them will have to be treated again, they'll be uploaded again, and only then will it become a valid document for action. So assessees can be very clear, it is now a transparent process. No one authority, no one officer will be doing it independently on his own. And then from 1st October 2019, all notices to be disposed of. This is very important. Things are not going to keep hanging fire. All notices to be disposed of within 3 months from the date of reply. Let's be clear, no assessee will have anything to do with any notice after 3 months once he's given a reply. So that's on the first silo of respecting and honoring our wealth creators. We shall go through a very transparent process. The next one is on the taxation measures that we are coming up with. The much awaited, yes, please, relief from enhanced surcharge on long-term and short-term capital gains. In order to encourage investment in the capital market, it has been decided to withdraw the enhanced surcharge levied by the Finance No. 2 Act of 2019, the recent budget time, on long and short-term capital gains arising from transfer of equity or shares and units referred in Section 11A and 111A and 112A respectively. In other words, the enhanced surcharge on FPI goes. In simple words. In other words, the pre-budget position is restored. Surcharge on domestic investors too in the equity market goes. Pre-budget position is restored. So, can we go to the next? Or do you want to you don't want to hear anything more? No, we are going on the others also. Okay, now, I am using an expression which is used commonly, but it's not something part of the ministry. Things about angel tax provisions. That's not an official expression for the tax that we are referring to, but never mind, all of us understand what angel tax refers to. So to mitigate genuine difficulties of startups and their investors, it has been decided that Section 56(2)(b) of the Income Tax Act shall not be applicable to a startup registered with DPIIT. So the section which is invoked and through which startups had difficulties, but that section is important for the income tax for many other reasons, so the section continues, but that section shall not be applicable to registered startups. All right, now this is done, but after this, if there's a difficulty, it has also been decided to set up a dedicated cell under a member of the CBDT. The CBDT chairman is here, present in the audience. A member of the CBDT will head a cell under him for addressing the problems of startups. A startup having any income tax issue can approach the cell for quick resolution of the problems. So that way, we have made it clear that it shall not apply to startups who are registered with the Department of industry and internal trade. Not only that, but further, there will be a member who will be handling it from the CBDT. We move to the next, which is my third silo, which relates to measures that we are coming up with for the banks, for NBFCs, and for MSMEs. Additional credit expansion through public sector banks. This is something which we did announce during the budget session. Upfront, we are releasing the 70,000 crores. Upfront, we are releasing the 70,000 crores and additional lending and liquidity to the tune of 5 lakh crores can be made available by providing this upfront capital for the PSPs. This was announced in the budget. We are doing it upfront now. And this will, we are very clear that this will benefit all the corporates, retail borrowers, MSMEs, and small traders as well. So we'll also tell you that we're closely working out the ways in which this flow will happen, how it will flow through the NBFCs and so on in a later slide. But this is the first one which we want to tell you. Next. Banks have been discussing with us. You know that the first discussion one Monday happened with the banks only. Banks have now decided to pass on any rate cut through the MCLR reduction to benefit all borrowers. It's a decision which the banks have made. I'm very grateful because during the consultation, we emphasized on the total, irrespective of the segments, people saying that the benefits of rate reduction don't reach them at all. Or if it reaches in trickles, or if it reaches, the trickles last over several months and years. So there was this across-the-board grievance that interest rates not being passed down to the customer is affecting, in spite of Reserve Bank having brought it down several times. So now we are very grateful all the banks have agreed and they said that they shall pass on the rate. The next one is, this is more important and that will explain the previous point that I've made. Banks, again, have decided to launch repo rate or external benchmarking linked loan products. Only a few days ago, the governor of Reserve Bank had spoken about it. He was talking about institutionalizing this mechanism, was also still hoping that the banks would work on it. Now, banks have agreed to do this, and I really want to put on record my appreciation of the Finance Secretary who has been sitting and engaging with the banks to convince them that today's environment demands that the banks become a bit more reasonable on this, and this will therefore result in reduced EMI for housing loans, vehicles and other retail loans by directly linking repo rate to the interest rates, which means the moment the reduction has happened, it will directly benefit the customers, end customers. Working capital loans for industry will also become cheaper as a result. Go over to the next, customer ease. In order to reduce harassment and bring in greater efficiency, public sector banks shall ensure mandated return of loan documents within 15 days of loan closure. Most often, people who came and spoke to us said, look, we finished the loan, we've brought it to a closure, but our documents, the security related documents are not being given to us. It was a demand of every segment which met with us during the consultation, and therefore we've worked together with public sector banks and come to today's situation where within 15 days of the closure of the loan, the documents will be given to the customers so that he can do anything else with it afterwards. It shall now not be held unreasonably by the banks. So this will benefit all those customers who have mortgage documents in the banks and they are sitting without being able to release them. I go to the next point, again under the banks and NBFCs, again on the customer ease, online tracking of loan applications by customers of retail, MSME, housing, vehicle working capital, limit enhancements, all of this will be covered. They can track it themselves online. So there's no need for them to wonder saying the application made, nothing has turned up, we don't know where it is lying. You track it like we would do with a courier parcel, I suppose, as to where it goes at which stage. So this would increase transparency, reduce harassment. There shall not be a need for people to go knock at different doors to say, where's my loan application? And this will also improve the turnaround time for customers. The next is talking about banks to issue improved transparent OTS policy, one-time settlement policy, to benefit MSME. This is not theoretical. This is not an abstraction. We're not just saying, oh, banks will improve transparency. How will they do it? For settlement of one-time loans or one-time loan settlements, we are approaching it with a checkbox approach. If a client has complied with certain requirements in one sheet of paper, use a checkbox system, and there and then settle for the one-time settlement, rather than say somebody else will have to take a call, we'll have to pass the paper on to somebody else and come back and waste time. If the checkbox approach is taken up by MSMEs and they go about ticking the box and giving it to the banks, there's no reason somebody else should come to decide the matter. The banks can there and then decide and clear the one-time settlements which are due. Because many of the NPAs or many of these accounts which are waiting for banks to take a call are waiting because nobody wants to take this call. Nobody wants to take a decision on the one-time settlement. There are many other points which I'll add to say, why will an official in a bank now feel encouraged to do it? We've taken adequate steps also to make sure that there shall not be any harassment of the official for the risk that he's taking, because the formulation is as per the checkbox ticking. So that way we expect to have a lot of quick one-time settlements clearing out of the bank's books. The next one is the one which I elaborated. In order to protect decision-making, honest decision-making, because the inputs which are coming are for fear of action. Many of those honest decision-makers in banks are not able to go forward to take a call because they don't know what is involved in the decision-making, and therefore there is a stagnation in decision-making in banks. We are now making sure that stagnation, that worry, that aversion to risk-taking are all being removed. So in order to support decision-making and to prevent harassment for genuine commercial decision by bankers, the CBC has issued directions that Internal Advisory Committee, the IAC, in banks to classify cases as vigilance and non-vigilance. Decision on the by the IAC and bank chief vigilance officers or the DAs to be treated as final. So because that happens there and then, decision-taking risk will not be anymore laden in their heads. So we expect that will protect honest decision-making in the banks. We move to the next point under banks, NBFCs and MSMEs. More credit support for purchase of houses, vehicles, and for consumption goods. How are we doing this? Additional liquidity support for HFCs, home finance corporations, for rupees 20,000 crores by the National Housing Bank, and thereby increasing it to 30,000 crores, which is an increase which we are making now. Partial credit guarantee scheme for purchase of pooled assets of NBFCs and housing finance corporations up to 1 lakh crore to be monitored at the highest level in each of the banks. So NHBs have already settled some issues. As we are announcing this, some of them have already been settled, very clearly showing the NBFCs are receiving liquidity from the banks, and the NBFCs are also moving towards funding of people, giving credits to people. Examples shall be out by late evening today. Some of them will come for you all to double check that this is indeed started moving. And therefore, the NHB related increase in funding from 20,000 crore to 30,000 crore is sure to make a difference, because we've already started moving in that direction, and examples will be available for all of us. Partial credit guarantee scheme, which I've already explained, and that shall be monitored at the highest level. That was announced during budget. RBI has also come out with its notification on it. Through this, we expect many of the assets will get quickly pooled and NBFCs will receive the necessary liquidity. The prepayment notices issued to NBFCs will be monitored by the banks. We move over to the next point, which is NBFCs will now be permitted to use Aadhaar authenticated bank KYC to avoid repeated processes. Because many of the people who came for consultation said what has been proved once is now being repeatedly asked by another agency and a third one and so on. So now what we've said is clearly that Aadhaar can be authenticated by the banks through the KYC, and NBFCs need not ask for one more time proving and repeating the process. This will simplify and quicken up the taking of credit. So this was a major demand by the NBFCs, and therefore we have ensured that we've given them this benefit. The necessary changes have also been made in the PMLA rules for this. Aadhaar regulations have also been tweaked to this extent. Then this will enable a easier and faster tracking, onboarding of customers, we think. Another very important fact, all of you all will probably know, quick summary would be banks are sitting with liquidity, NBFCs have the reach. But this money is not moving to the NBFCs, and as a result, NBFCs are not able to forward credit. This has been the overall simple summary of the situation. What we've now done is to take advantage of the liquidity that which is with the PSBs and the last mile consumer connect that the NBFCs have, so that PSBs can fast track collaboration for loans, particularly to the MSME. So the co-origination is the rules or the requirements of the banks will apply even in the context of an NBFC where the requirement probably do not exist or are hushed. So this will work together and bring in the synergy between the NBFCs and the banks, so that where the NBFCs are present, the banks' advantages will reach them, and where there are no NBFCs, the banks themselves can push it forward, and therefore the synergy, we think, will help in reaching out the end customer quickly with the liquidity which is sitting with the PSBs and the NBFCs, which are nicely spread and available everywhere. So the co-origination is a very important measure, which even the RBI has gone through, and we are convinced that it's going to work to the favor of the customers. The most important thing again, GST refunds for MSMEs. This was rampantly heard from a lot of MSMEs saying, our refunds are stuck, we are not sure when we will get it, will you give it? Now, I would want all of you all to please hear this out clearly. This is clearly time-bound now. All pending GST refunds due to MSMEs, till now that is, shall be paid within 30 days. Everything that is pending since I don't know how many years, from the time of introduction, let us say, of the GST, from then till today, whoever has got a pending refund problem, it will be sorted out within 30 days from today. The government has worked very clearly to clear it all within 30 days. And from now, for future GST refunds, every refund for future GST refund matters will be sorted out within 60 days after it arises. For those which are pending till now, irrespective of 1 year, 6 months, 8 months, whatever, we commit ourselves to clear it within 30 days. And from now, anything which arises newly, within 60 days, the refund for MSMEs will be done, so that the MSMEs are not worried about money being stuck somewhere and they're not getting it. So that's cleared. The next one, TREADS you are aware of. Many of these companies are registered under TREADS, and the Prime Minister had very clearly announced, once I recall, that being in TREADS, if there are large companies who owe money to the MSMEs, and if they were in TREADS, that system enabled them, the moment they got into it, that they could discount their bills and get the money even if the company delayed it. TREADS enabled that. Now what we are telling is, for those companies which are registered and are part of the GST, if TREADS uses the GSTN facility, and for every bill that is certified or signature obtained under the GST, the same discounting will be available even for MSMEs, so they need not worry that GST paid, we paid GST tax, but we are not getting the payment from that company who owes us, for whom the supply has been made. So that company's money can now be obtained because the bank will honor the moment the GST and signature is on it, and MSMEs will be benefiting similarly as many companies benefit out of TREADS. Now, TREADS and GSTN are working together. They can obtain information, and therefore the MSMEs can quickly discount their bills and get the money for their requirement. The next one is a point on MSME definition. That's been one of the worries of MSMEs who approached us. A single definition would serve them better rather than several definitions existing in different acts. So what we have committed here is the MSME Act. In fact, the discussions when it happened, Manya Nitin Gadkari ji was seated with us, even as the consultation happened, and this issue was repeatedly raised. We are addressing that issue because the MSME Act will now go to the Cabinet with inputs taken from all of the ministries concerned, just so there is one definition, one meaningful definition, which probably may not necessarily link it only to turnover, but might take plant and machinery and the optimal capacity and everything else on board and come up with one definition for MSME, through which companies now can feel a lot more at ease with their business activity. So that sooner will go to the Cabinet. The UK Sinha Committee has come up with a lot of recommendations, many of which are already on board. We have taken it up, and we are already, in fact, some of the suggestions that we've done here for the MSMEs are partly covered by the UK Sinha Committee. We shall ensure decisions on recommendations such as on ease of credit, marketing, technology, delayed payments, etc. are all addressed at the earliest. So I want to assure you that many of them have already become a part of what we are speaking about today, but others in the UK Sinha Committee report will be taken up. The next we move over to the next silo, which is increasing capital flows and energizing financial markets. And this is also very much in line with what has been indicated in the budget speech. We know that in India, and all of you are equally aware, that in India there is a need for deepening bond markets. And because of that, a lot of issues arise for want of capital and so on. I'll very quickly go through the measures we've already started taking so that bond markets in India get strengthened. In order to improve access to long-term finance, it is proposed to establish an organization to provide credit enhancement for infrastructure and housing projects, particularly in the context of India not having a developmental bank, and also therefore need for us to have an institutional mechanism. This will come of great help. So this would enhance debt flow towards such projects. The name of the organization will be in a day or two revealed, but that organization will take care of providing credit enhancement facility for infrastructure and other housing projects. The government would soon take further action on development of credit default swap markets in consultation with the RBI and SEBI. In order again to improve domestic markets in bonds, Ministry of Finance will work with the RBI to make it more conducive for investors and for bond issuers, as well as facilitate increased trading for price discovery, a lot more open market-driven kind of a price discovery mechanism. Government has amended the Companies Act, you all know, to remove requirement for creation of debenture redemption reserve, the DRR, of outstanding debentures in respect of listed companies, NBFCs, and for the HFC. Again, continuing on the capital flows, access of Indian companies to the global market. The Depository Receipt Scheme of 2014 is expected to be operationalized soon by SEBI. This will give Indian companies increased access to foreign funds through the ADR and GDR. And this is something which repeatedly industry kept referring to us when they came in for consultation. We clearly yielded on that, and we shall organize ourselves in order to be able to service this. The next is use of Aadhaar-based KYC. Again, a big suggestion which has come during consultations. The consultation that we had with industry, with others, this has come out as one of the big demands. In order to improve market access for the domestic retail investors, Aadhaar-based KYC to be permitted for opening demat accounts and making investment in mutual funds. Necessary notification for amendments in the PMLA rules will be issued sooner. So that takes care of the Aadhaar and KYC. Simplified KYC procedures to improve market access for foreign investors, including the FPIs. So this will be introduced sooner, and that will make the whole process simplified. I go to the next silo, which is there's one more here in the capital flows. Offshore rupee market. I'm sure many of you are interested in it. To bring offshore rupee market to domestic stock exchanges and to permit trading of the US dollar, Indian rupee derivatives in the GIFT IFSC. Ministry of Finance is working with RBI to introduce this measure shortly, and this will enable the rupee market to the domestic stock exchanges. We now move to the fifth silo. I've finished with 4 silos. Now the fifth one is on infrastructure. On infrastructure, again, the discussions went on for a long time. Different sections had different inputs to give us. We are responding to all of them. One which was outstanding was that a lot of payment gets delayed from the government and public sector undertaking. They do the job, but they don't get their money. And it's held with the government departments or with the CPSCs. So now we have very clearly said delayed payments from government CPSCs to be monitored by Department of Expenditure and performance reviewed by the Cabinet Secretariat with a dashboard in front of it. I must thank Secretary Murmu. Even as we are saying this, he's cleared, I understand, nearly 30,000 crores of payment for all those who are waiting for clearance, which are government departments and also CPSC. So money actually going into the hands of who were waiting for it. Money actually not getting locked up, liquidity reaching where it should reach. And I'm sure with the Cabinet Secretariat monitoring it, Secretary Expenditure should be, except in those cases which are under litigation, clear up all the due payments. So that's happening. The next is very important. It may be an old decision. It may be something which has existed from Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time onwards, and it benefited industries for some time. And after that, God knows what happened. It reached a stagnation. But we are reviving that, and through that, assuring corporate sector that they after arbitration. This is a decision of that time. After arbitration, 75% of the arbitration award will be released. But then what happened when it reached a stagnation? Banks were risk averse. They didn't want to cover them for the delayed period after the arbitration. The interests were mounting. The interests were double of what is otherwise the interest due to them. And because of that, banks were risk averse. They said we wouldn't cover it. Now we are making necessary changes Secretary Finance will be working together with bank. Secretary DEA will also be working with Reserve Bank and banks to ensure that the risk aversion based on that multiplying interest will be addressed, and we shall immediately move on paying the 75% based on arbitration, and the risk aversion because of the mounting interest will be sorted out. So as a result, many of those cases which after arbitration are still waiting to get their monies will get their 75% straight away. So that's a relief we wish to offer industry. The next one is the issue of the 100 lakh crores for developing infrastructure, which was announced earlier. I just want to very clearly tell you, after the announcement, we've moved forward. An interministerial task force has been formed by the Department of Economic Affairs. Secretary Department of Economic Affairs is here, and they shall finalize the pipeline through which various projects will get funded quickly so that infrastructure work does not get delayed any further. The above initiative is expected to boost growth and create jobs. These projects would be monitored actively to accelerate capital expenditure and investment in the economy. So just not 100 lakh crores, task force is working, it's moving the projects, funding the money which is given, which is already announced, and through this there should be speedy implementation of the infrastructure related money that we've allotted in the budget. I move over to another thing which many of you are waiting, a lot of speculation on it, the automobile sector. The automotive sector has been meeting us both as industry and also individually who came and spoke to us about it. I'm glad to tell you a few things about the responses that we've given in this matter. The BS4 vehicles was a big issue. A lot of companies had provided and started producing, and they are producing it even now. There was this confusion because government wanted to make an announcement as regards encouraging electric vehicles, encouraging electric batteries and so on. So that confusion we want to dispel completely. BS vehicles which are purchased as up to 31/3, oh God, that reads 30, 31/3/20. We didn't intend till 2030. It is 2020. So BS4 vehicles which are purchased up to 2020 March will all remain operational for their entire period of registration. So it's not as if from 2020 BS4 vehicles are all off the road, not at all. As long as their registration is on, they will be allowed and they will be as good as any other vehicle. The next point, very important again, the revision of one-time registration fee. There was really a lot of heartburn, understandably, on the registration fee being asked up front and so on. We have deferred it till June 2020. There is no need on that to have any worry. The next is, importantly, because inventories are stocking up and piling up in car manufacturing companies. Today, you get a 15% depreciation on them. An additional 15% depreciation on all vehicles, not only this, not only that, on all vehicles, to increase it to 30% acquired during the period from now till March 2020. All vehicles acquired, irrespective of the type, any vehicle acquired from now till March of 2020 will benefit from an additional 15% depreciation, so taking it to a total of 30% depreciation on all of them. We move over to the next. Both EVs and the internal combustion vehicles will continue to be registered. So the fear that what happens to my BS4 vehicle need not be in anybody's mind. The government's focus will be on setting up infrastructure for development of ancillaries and components, including batteries for export. But both EVs and ICVs will continue to be registered. The next one, in order to boost demand, government shall lift the ban on purchase of new vehicles to replace all old vehicles by government departments. So government departments, which till now had a ban on them that they can't buy vehicles even to replace the old ones, will now be actively told to please replace your old ones. Please replace your old one, go buy new vehicles, bring them on. So the inventory to that extent will be first we start the charity at home. We shall buy all the vehicles which we need to replace those vehicles which are with us. So money will go into the car manufacturers' hands, and therefore I hope after that the component manufacturers will also get paid for all the supplies that they've made. So that's an important point I want to draw your attention to for boosting demand. The next one in that, again to boost demand, government will consider various measures including a scrappage policy. I would have really gone ahead with introducing the benefits which can come out of a scrappage policy, but only because we need to create the necessary infrastructure for it. Scrappage means you're giving your old vehicles, getting a coupon if necessary for it, then going and buying a new vehicle, provided the old vehicle can be completely broken down, its value be removed in bits and pieces, and to that extent the actual scrappage value can be given to the person who's giving the car for scrap and then moving to buy a new vehicle. But because we still don't have the infrastructure for dealing with scrap vehicles, we are holding on, but we shall hopefully come with a scrappage for policy sooner, so that road unworthy vehicles or old vehicles can all be sent not to be recycled again, creating greater pollution problem, but to be completely scrapped. And the money for scrapped vehicles be obtained in the form of some coupons, and new vehicles can be bought. So scrappage policy is something we'll work on, come back to you, simultaneously creating the infrastructure for it so that a policy of that nature can be completely effectively implemented. So these are my 6 silos. I should also tell you that on the home buyers, we've had consultations, particularly for the home buyers who have problems in the NCR, and therefore it will also have a bearing in Mumbai, where a lot of home buyers have paid their advances and they are sitting without knowing what to do, and the promoters are sitting with no money to further their projects. We've had discussions. We are also very close to coming up with some solution. I have not introduced that today in this presentation, but sooner I will be able to come separately to talk to you all about the home buyers and the way in which government is responding to the ways of solving their problem. This is only a start. I do not want worries to remain. We are continuously consulting with people. We are taking their inputs and responding to them. And therefore, this is only a start. Today we've come with a set of our responses. Sooner the next week again, I do not want to give a date even now, but next week again, we shall be coming with one more set of announcements. One more set of announcements by middle of next week. Soon after that, I hope to come with another more set of announcements, so you can expect to have us come and talk to you twice more in the near future, which will take care of the other issues which are pending. When we are facing trade tensions, global trade is down, currency wars are all on, and our growth continues still, and I'm saying this with a clear factual basis, our growth still continues to be the highest. Are we still not the highest among the global economies, please? No, let me just finish. You may differ from me, but I'm talking on facts, right? I'm keeping figures before you. So we are still the economy which is growing higher than most other economies, be they advanced, be they emerging. And therefore, we are doing everything in order that we respond to wealth creators, respond to the economy, and make sure every specific challenge that is being faced by industry is addressed by us. And we shall continue to respond to them. As I said, the next week we'll come, hopefully twice, to talk about issues. All the stakeholders are in continuous touch with us. I'm going around the country to meet with tax authorities, just so we make them understand that the targets given for revenue collection are not unrealistic. I said it in the Parliament, I repeat it here. The tax revenues that have to be generated are decided after continuous discussion with the officials and taking the ground realities to our context. And therefore, I'm going around the country meeting with tax administrators to tell them that please, they do not need to overstretch themselves. No overreaching by tax authorities will happen. It is eminently possible for us to achieve the targets that we've set for ourselves. So I'm meeting with the tax authorities just so they understand technology and the role that it can play in collecting revenues, and we are sure, as a result of which, wealth creators will be treated with greater sensitivity from our side. Thank you for your patient hearing. The House is open now.
Thank you, ma'am, for the comprehensive measures. Now we'll take some questions. Just one sec. 235, yeah, please. Please identify yourself and also the organization. Yeah.
I'm Timsi Jaipuria from CNBC TV 18. Firstly, on what is the fiscal impact, because you've removed the FPI surcharge, you've also introduced a lot of measures. What is the fiscal impact? And secondly, how do you plan to protect job losses that are happening across India, especially when it comes to the auto sector, shutting down of manufacturing units, because that is one of the major concerns of the current discourse, especially FMCG goods not leading to a good growth. There's a consumption slowdown. How do you think that the current measures are going to revive consumption slowdown, job losses can be controlled, and yes, what is the fiscal impact?
Can I ask one of the secretaries to expand on it? Revenue Secretary, would you want to speak? Thank you.
So for the enhanced surcharge, particularly on the capital gains, long-term and short-term, both for the FPIs as well as the domestic investors, they have been restored to the pre-budget level, and then approximate the revenue implication would be around 1,400 crores. So far as the higher depreciation on the vehicles, it is very, very difficult to estimate, but then we will see, how it goes. And so far the angel tax is concerned, and in case of an angel tax, what we so-called angel tax, because what the Honorable Finance Minister said that there is nothing called angel tax in the law itself, but then this section 5672B, that section is an anti-abuse provision, basically to address the certain anti-abuse by the cell companies. So what we have done is that now, the various circulars that we have issued, and then further we will issue, if any circular is required, that this anti-abuse provision of section 56 would not apply to the startups which are registered with the DPIIT.
Others, please.
Oh.
These are all being addressed only for that, right?
154.
मैं लक्ष्मण CNBC आवाज़ से। मेरा सवाल FPI से जुड़ा हुआ है। FPI पे जो सरचार्ज हटाने का फैसला लिया गया फिर डोमेस्टिक इन्वेस्टर्स का, वो कब से लागू माना जाएगा? बजट से पहले से लागू माना जाएगा? इसको कैसे लागू करेंगे? क्योंकि इसके लिए इनकम टैक्स एक्ट में बदलाव करना जहां तक मैं समझता हूं ज़रूरी होगा। तो क्या ऑर्डिनेंस लाएंगे या फिर अगले बजट तक इंतजार करना होगा?
See, what we proposed, ये बजट में जो अनाउंस हुआ था, और अभी जो हम लोगों ने आदरणीय वित्त मंत्री ने जो अभी कहा कि इनहैंस सरचार्ज जो इस बजट के द्वारा लाया गया था, डोमेस्टिक इन्वेस्टर्स एज वेल एज फॉरेन पोर्टफोलियो इन्वेस्टर्स, उनके जो कैपिटल गेंस पर जो इक्विटी और इक्विटी ओरिएंटेड जो फंड्स वगैरह होंगे, उसके सरचार्ज वापस लिए गए हैं और ये इस वित्तीय वर्ष के लिए एप्लीकेबल होगा। और इसके बारे में जो भी एक नेसेसरी ऑर्डर्स है, जो भी अप्रूवल्स है, वो सब हम करेंगे। जहाँ तक कि इन्वेस्टर्स का सवाल है, उनको इसकी चिंता नहीं करनी चाहिए कि उन पे लगेगा, और उसके बारे में जो भी नेसेसरी जो ऑर्डर्स होंगे वो हम लोग इशू करेंगे।
रितो।
Ma'am, I'm Ruchi Bhatia from ET now. You have said that the tax revenue collection target given in the budget is not unrealistic. However, ma'am, given the growth concerns and there is an expectation that the Q2 GDP number will also show some bit of a downtick, help us understand what is the response, A, from the tax officials on that, and B, because now the asking rate is over 22% per month, because if you see till August 15, the tax revenue growth rate has only been to the tune of 6 to 7%.
I'll give you a broad sketch based on the consultations that I'm holding with the tax authorities. I've finished 3. I will be in the next week probably doing 2 more. I have not till now come across, even if you want to say that officials will not say it in front of you, but they may have this feeling, not at all. I've had very, very relaxed conversation with all of them. I didn't get the feeling that they are going to have to stretch themselves too far to collect it. Many of them think, in fact, I was very pleasantly surprised, both in, Revenue Secretary, please correct me, both in Uttar Pradesh and in Karnataka, the trends are already showing comfortable levels in revenue collection. And with monsoon being in our favor, I would think, with the rains and other things happening, the collection is sure to happen to meet the targets set. And more importantly there, without any kind of overreach by the authorities, without any kind of overreach which can be construed as being harassing by the assessees. So I'm not getting any feeling to worry or to suspect that my targets will not be met. And this after meeting in 3 different places tax authorities.
Yes.
Ma'am, Mukesh Kaushik, on your right. Ma'am, less than 2 months after you presented your general budget, you are coming out with boost economy. To announce these measures at the time of budget presentation, and why we allowed 2-3 months period to economy to slide?
Coming now to tell you, after having heard the industry, why would anyone want to allow the economy to slide? If only I can know that it will slide indeed. Will I do it? Is that something any one of us will decide?
Yes.
Ma'am, Shishir here from Hindu Business Line. Apart from the automobile sector, biscuit industry is also seeking some kind of reduction in GST. They are saying that even 5 rupee biscuit packet people are not going to buy. So can we expect some kind of reconsideration on biscuit GST, which is 12% for more than 100 rupees a kg and less for that?
Talking on GSTs and technical details and rates, I will still venture with the confidence that Revenue Secretary can correct me. But I remember participating in this debate of biscuits for poorer households, poorer people, which should not be taxed at all. And I remember in the introductory days of GST, explaining it to a lot of people who are running small, biscuit making units. As long as they are not branded, and as long as they were under the composition, there's still no worries about tax. So if you're really talking about biscuits which are for the poor, nutrition for the poor, we're not taxing them. But if branded companies have a problem, and now because it's all over the papers, If you are being told, oh, come on, it's GST which has killed them, I would expect the state ministers also to speak about it. If they really have sense that branded companies are shutting because of GST, I would like to hear it from the ministers from the states. Because after all, GST Council is not just the union government. So, I would want many of the issues about GST which is being discussed as issues which affect, in a federal system, states too. And GST-related decisions are not unilaterally taken by the central government. So I'd like to hear the state ministers much before all of us together take a call on it. Revenue Secretary, would you want to add to it?
Ma'am, Sapna Das from CNBC TV 18. The first question is on the 70,000 crores of upfront push to the credit system. Are we referring to the PSB bonds that you have announced in the budget? So it's going to be a bond infusion, and can we expect the recapitalization program for all banks to be announced simultaneously, unlike in tranches, as has been the case in the last 2 financial years? That's one. Second, ma'am, any clarity on the effective date from which the FPI surcharge rollback becomes effective? And last, you've announced so many measures on the auto sector. Does that rule out any tax relief that is being spoken about?
As regards the recapitalization amount, you know, Madam has announced it in the budget that there would be a 70,000 crore recap for the banks. And that is to sort of leverage the entire from the market, and as she mentioned, to further make around 5 lakh crores available for the credit expansion. This will happen very soon, and we are going to give it upfront. That's the position. That's upfront. Well, if 70,000 is to go, it will go to wherever it has to, wherever it belongs to, through bonds.
Can just clarify. Yeah, as I said in the beginning, that the enhanced surcharge on the capital gains, long-term and short-term, regardless whether it is an FPI or domestic investors, that has been withdrawn. So therefore, for the entire year, yes.
So all category 3 funds will get them from this?
Yes, yes.
And then my last question was on the auto sector. So
Related issue, not for me.
And there you
the
have,
council will tell you.
and there you have the depreciation which has been increased to 30%.
Yeah.
So that's a relief related to the tax.
Okay, please.
Good evening. This is Arup from Business Standard. Just a couple of clarifications, ma'am. This one-time settlement for MSMEs from banks, is it applicable? From which date is it applicable? Is it also retrospective? And what about the MSMEs which are in? What about the companies which are in IBC? Number two, this long-term capital gains and short-term capital gains have been, the surcharge has been removed. What about futures and options trading? Because that is still treated as business income. And number three, this is specifically for the expenditure secretary. When we say pending payments from government and PSUs at any given point of time, what is the ballpark figure of the pending payments from PSUs? Thank you, ma'am.
No, you see, the surcharge on the long term and the short term, on the equities, units, or the trust, which are covered under section 111A and 112A, and whatever it is covered, that have been withdrawn. So it addresses basically the most of the equities, mutual funds, and equity-oriented funds. So they have been covered.
Your concern on perhaps the FNO segment gets covered in these sections which Revenue Secretary has mentioned.
Ballpark kind of estimate is around 60,000 crore. It is across the PSCs, particularly the NHI. This is not working. Around 60,000 crore, and it is with the NHI as well as certain PSCs, and with the GEM portal, almost 13,000 crores of purchase has been done, and certain payments are delayed. It is more than 10 days or 60 days, around 4,000 crore is there. So we are monitoring those things, and very quickly it will be resolved.
As regards one-time settlement, you have to look all the decisions taken today in totality. It is saying when you give an application, you can track it yourself. That is number one. So that you know there is no time lag and you know about it, because time is money. Secondly, in one-time settlement, there are certain parameters which are to be checked. So one is automating those parameters so as you tick the box, this is the turnover, this is the value of the plant and machinery and whatever you have. So all that is the tick box approach, and all banks are going to issue a non-discretionary kind of a one-time settlement policy so that you are not harassed. And then you are able to simultaneously see the status of your application. So read both these together, you will have a much faster non-discretionary decision.
The IBC.
And about the IBC provisions do not affect this particular part. So, and it is going to benefit the MSMEs largely, because there you have those delays and the discretion and the judgmental call, which will be through a policy prefixed.
May I request the friends to ask one or two questions at best, so that we can cover many people. Yes, please.
Sir, the mechanism of withdrawal of the surcharge is not yet clear, sir, because the finance bill has been passed. So if you could elaborate on the mechanism, and by when do we expect this whole thing to actually be implemented? The announcement is welcome indeed, but by when it will be implemented, sir?
No, as has already been clarified, that it will be applicable from the current year itself, because the enhanced surcharge was applicable from the current year. The necessary orders, notifications will be issued.
And it was mentioned the pre-budget position is restored. So that answers everything.
Yes.
Hi ma'am, this is Sharad Raghavan from The Hindu. Just for clarity's sake, I wanted to check the higher surcharge still applies for high net worth individuals?
Yes, for now. And on that, I would like to clearly say that marking the 75th anniversary of India's independence, and immediately on reaching that stage, we want to review this surcharge on the HNI. Some have been withdrawn today. That has been made very clear. Long-term capital gains, short-term capital gains on securities and so on. But as regards a specific reference to high net individuals, the moment we finish the 75th anniversary of India's independence, we shall review and take a call on that.
Madam, I'm Rajiv from Inadu. Is there any forward movement regarding foreign debenture bonds, which you have announced in your 5 July budget speech?
Will timing of any such security or debt gets announced at that point of time? Rest was there in the budget speech in any case.
Yes.
मैडम एक ही सवाल है और शायद जवाब आप ही देंगी. सवाल यह कि आपने 32 पॉइंट प्रोजेक्शन किया कि इकोनॉमी को कैसे बूस्ट करना है, लेकिन आपके विरोधी, आपके जो विपक्षी दल है और खासकर कांग्रेस ये कह रही कि इकोनॉमिक स्लो डाउन है, इसलिए पूर्व वित्त मंत्री को जानबूझकर उससे ध्यान हटाने के लिए चिदम्बरम को फंसाया गया, ईडी को उसके पीछे लगाया गया, करप्शन और इकोनॉमिक स्लो डाउन का.
उनके जमाने में करप्शन और इकोनॉमिक स्लो डाउन और इन्फ्लेशन इतना आसमान तक पहुंचना, ये सब उनका देन है. आज इस सरकार ने रिफॉर्म्स के द्वारा इकोनॉमी को बूस्ट करने के लिए और 2014 से इन्फ्लेशन को एकदम नियंत्रण में रखना, ये सब हमारी देन है इकोनॉमी के लिए. और हम आज भी ओपन है सजेशंस के लिए, उसके लिए कुछ काम करने के लिए. इकोनॉमी इससे आगे तेजी से बढ़ना है, इसके लिए करने के लिए. सो कांग्रेस के नजरिया उससे ज्यादा नहीं चलेगी. इसीलिए करप्शन हो, इन्फ्लेशन हो और बैंक के द्वारा एनपीए क्रिएशन हो, ये सब कांग्रेस के देन है. वो उनसे ऊपर उनकी टिप्पणी रहना चाहिए हर बार.
मैडम मेरा सवाल आपसे, मैडम आज आपने इकोनॉमी को बूस्ट करने के लिए कई सारे बड़े बड़े ऐलान किए हैं, कई सारे इसमें से काफ़ी फ़ायदा भी मिलेगा इससे. मेरा सवाल मैडम रियल इस्टेट को से लेकर के है, कई सारे हाउसिंग प्रोजेक्ट अधूरे पड़े हुए हैं उसमें हजारों लाखों बायर्स के पैसे भी अटके हुए हैं, बैंकों के भी पैसे अटके हुए हैं और काफ़ी नुकसान बैंकों को भी हो रहा, सरकार को भी हो रहा और पब्लिक भी परेशान है। क्या आपके जो उपाय आपने जो उठाए हैं इनमें कहीं रियल एस्टेट शामिल है? क्योंकि रेरा पूरी तरह से फ्लॉप हो गया, पूरी तरह से फेल है।
इसीलिए आखिर में ये बात कही कि होम बायर्स के विषय में भी इंटर मिनिस्ट्रियल ग्रुप बैठी थी और अधिकारीगण के साथ होम बायर्स भी आकर हमसे बात किए और होम बायर्स के लिए क्या क्या करना है इसके ऊपर भी ऑलमोस्ट हमने वर्क कर चुके थे। मैं उसके कारण इन सबको देर नहीं करना चाहती थी, इसीलिए उसके लिए वेट नहीं किया, मगर उस दृष्टि में भी काम हो रही है। इसीलिए मैंने बोला अगले सप्ताह हम होम बायर्स के विषय में भी और बाकी कुछ विषयों में भी आपके सामने आएंगे।
We'll take the last two questions, please.
Ma'am, this is ma'am, on your right, ma'am. Ma'am, this is Chetan from BTVI. Congratulations on the measures. The rupee going in light of global. You think the rupee would stabilize this measure? And also any ma'am.
No, I've also already answered on the GST rate cuts on the automobiles or anything else. It is the GST Council's prerogative. I really can't speak for them here all on my own. But as regards the
rupee, ma'am.
Rupee, I would think the rupee's volatility and the rate or the levels that it has reached will help our exports. And that itself would help the economy because exporters can now look forward to reaching greater markets across the world, and this will boost the economy.
One last question.
Hi, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Okay, fine, ma'am.
There was another big announcement that was made in the budget, which was to issue a sovereign bond to raise part of the money for our domestic market borrowing. So basically, has there been any movement? Because have we spoken to experts in markets about this? And secondly, EPFO made a decision yesterday that they are not going to invest in bonds issued by private sector companies anymore because of the recent defaults by NBFCs. Have you taken note of this issue? And also, any update on sovereign bond?
I just mentioned about sovereign bond, that timing, tranche, rates and the manner of any such issuance gets decided at that time depending upon the market situations. Regarding EPFO, it's an organization which invests as per the guidelines laid down by it. So for them to switch from one type of security to another, between debt or equity or interest between the debt itself, is always their call, which they take on the basis of the risk that they perceive.
Ma'am,
sir.
Yes.
प्रकाश प्रियदर्शी हूँ CNBC आवाज़ से। मेरा पहला सवाल है कि क्या जो लिस्टेड कंपनीज हैं उसमें जो मिनिमम पब्लिक शेयर होल्डिंग 25% से बढ़ाकर 35% करने की घोषणा की गई थी, क्या उसको भी रोल बैक करने पर विचार किया जा रहा है? नहीं,
घोषणा कराने के लिए नहीं हुई। हम इसका इंडिकेट किए कि इसके ऊपर चर्चा गोष्ठी होगा, स्टेक होल्डर्स से कंसल्टेशन होगी और सेबी वो कंसल्टेशन जारी रख रहे हैं। इसीलिए वो घोषणा ये नहीं था कि फैसला हो गया है, उसके ऊपर चर्चा हो रही है, सेबी कर रही है वो चर्चा।
एक सवाल मैम ऑटो सेक्टर को लेकर है कि आपने कहा कि BS4 व्हीकल का रजिस्ट्रेशन जो है वो 2030 तक होगा, मार्च तक। तो जो BS6
वो टाइपिंग एरर था जी, हम सब हंस रहे थे। 2020 मार्च तक उसका BS4 का परचेस को हम अलग करेंगे ही। सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आदेश था कि BS4 को इफेस करते हुए अब BS6 तक पहुंचना। ये तो 2 साल पुरानी ऑर्डर है। उस समय मिनिस्ट्री उसके ऊपर एक फैसला सुनवाई की 2020 से BS6 लागू होगा। There's nothing to do with 2030, please. That was a typing error.
मैम, मैं आमिर न्यूज़ नेशन से।
मैडम, till 2031-3-2020, whatever is purchased will continue to work for the period of its registration. तो उसमें ये डर की आवश्यकता नहीं है कि वो बंद हो जाएंगी। मार्केट में जो इस प्रकार की सूचना या एक अफवाह या एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, वो बिल्कुल क्लियर है कि जो भी 31-3-20 तक प्रोड्यूस हो चुका है और जो खरीदा जा चुकेगा वो चलता रहेगा, उस पर डेप्रिसिएशन एडिशनल 30% कर दिया गया है।
एडिशनल
15% करके 30% हो गया है और दोनों के लिए बराबर का माध्यम है, बराबर का बाजार उपलब्ध है। तो आईसीबी भी चलती रहेंगे और वो भी चलते रहेंगे।
मैडम मैम, मैं आमिर हूँ न्यूज नेशन से। आपने
Madam Minister, I'm Ujjwal.
मैं आमिर हूँ न्यूज नेशन से मैम।
Just one sec. Please wait. You ask.
Madam Minister, Ujjwal Narayan from Newsrise. After the budget announcement, the surcharge levied on FPIs was seen as one of the primary reason for plight of FBI fund from the market. So, Madam, don't you think the steps has been taken, what you announced today has been little late? And apart from that, Rupee is today at around 72 level. So these levels are comfortable for Indian economy, because you and your party is always very critical about going down rupees in UPA regime. So it is now beyond that, come down beyond that.
When we were critical during UPA regime, please be clear that no issue is in isolation. With inflation touching Asman, with food inflation touching 2 digits, situation is not ceteris paribus. So our criticism at that time had context with which we made the criticism. So उस context को समझ लीजिए, सब चीज एक जैसे नहीं था उस समय। इन्फ्लेशन इतना हाई रेट रहने के बावजूद भी हर इंडिकेटर नेगेटिव में था, इसीलिए हमारे क्रिटिसिज्म। आज इन्फ्लेशन कहाँ है? So please let us understand the context in that.
मैम, आमिर न्यूज नेशन से। आपने कहा कि इकोनॉमी की हालत अभी दुरुस्त है, अभी हम कई पावरफुल इकोनॉमी से भी अच्छा कर रहे हैं, लेकिन शेयर मार्केट लगातार गिरा है। अगर आप बजट के बाद से देखेंगे, शेयर मार्केट में लगातार स्लो डाउन है। दूसरी तरफ ऑटो सेक्टर में तमाम नौकरियां जा चुकी हैं, 3.5 लाख का आंकड़ा है अभी, और बहुत सारी नौकरियां लटकी हुई हैं। रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर भी बहुत अच्छा नहीं कर रहा है। आपको क्या लगता है कि ये जो आपने आज प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस की और तमाम तब्दीलियां की हैं, इससे क्या इकोनॉमी में बदलाव होगा? ये वो स्टेप्स हैं, क्योंकि इकोनॉमी लगातार डाउन हो रही थी, इस वजह से ये स्टेप्स लिए गए?
हमने जो आज अनाउंस किया स्टेप्स, ये इंडस्ट्री के मांग से किए हैं। ये नहीं है कि हम नॉर्थ ब्लॉक में बैठे और कुछ अनाउंस नहीं कर रहे। अनाउंसमेंट जो भी हुआ आज डिमांड सेक्टर से आया है, उसके लिए हम हमारी रिस्पॉन्स दे रहे हैं, जिससे हम उम्मीद करते हैं, जैसे इंडस्ट्री उम्मीद करते हैं कि बदलाव आएगा, उनका पोजीशन इंप्रूव होगा। इसीलिए मैं मानती हूं जो हमने आज कर रहे हैं सिर्फ प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए नहीं, सबको मालूम होना चाहिए ये सरकार रेस्पॉन्सिव सरकार है। इंडस्ट्री आकर हमसे कुछ विषय बोले, उसका तुरंत हम रेस्पॉन्स दे रहे हैं, जिससे हम कुल मिलाकर के सबके इंप्रूवमेंट चाहते हैं, इसीलिए हम कर रहे हैं।
Yes.
In recent days, you've been discussing, and you said there'll be 2 more announcements. The big issue remains is whether you'll be able to keep the fiscal target by the end of the year, and then, of course, spiral growth, which the Prime Minister himself said, the animal spirit in the economy. Do you think these measures will help in going ahead, and will you be able to meet the targets that you had, targeted during the budget speech?
Very much so, because in consultation with the tax administrators, I very clearly get this impression that many of the 2-tier cities and regions in which our administrators who have been meeting me have been saying is they will be able to reach it. And I have emphasized that reaching has to be done without any sense of or any feeling of harassment at any corner. So with ease, they should be able to contact and make the claims and be able to generate the revenue. So yes, we think it's possible. And with revenue generation going as per our estimates, I think the fiscal discipline should also be matched.
नमस्कार मैम, आज आपने जो घोषणाएं की हैं और महत्वपूर्ण घोषणा से पहले जो शुरुआत की थी, आपने चाइना और अमेरिका का जिक्र किया था, ट्रेड वार का जिक्र किया था। कितना नुकसान हुआ है अब तक अगर उस ट्रेड वार की बात करें, और क्या ये जो पैकेज है, जो भी राहत है, कितना भरपाई कर पाएगी उस सेक्टर्स की बात करें जिसको नुकसान हुआ है?
देखिए, अभी जो ग्लोबल सिनेरियो है, और उस ग्लोबल सिनेरियो में अलग अलग फैक्टर्स हैं, और जैसा कि पहले ही स्लाइड में ये भी दिखाया गया कि किस तरीके से हमारा पोजीशन इन टर्म्स ऑफ ग्रोथ है, बाकी देशों की अपेक्षा हम कैसा कर रहे हैं। और इसलिए अगर ये कहना क्या कि ये ट्रेड वार के कारण हमारा कितना नुकसान हुआ है, ये सब तो अभी एक साल, अभी मतलब कुछ महीने में ये सब चीज़ तो पता नहीं लग सकता है। लेकिन जहाँ तक कि हमारे रेवेन्यू का सवाल है, जैसा कि मैडम ने अभी कहा कि हमारे दो बड़े रेवेन्यू के पैरामीटर्स हैं। एक है डायरेक्ट टैक्स का। पहला क्वार्टर में हमारा ग्रॉस जो ग्रोथ रेट है वो 13% का ग्रोथ रेट है डायरेक्ट टैक्स में। और जहाँ तक कि जीएसटी का सवाल है, तो जीएसटी में भी पहले क्वार्टर में 9% का उसमें हमें ग्रोथ मिला है। कस्टम्स का भी देखें तो कस्टम्स में भी जो रेवेन्यूज हमारे जो आए हैं पहले क्वार्टर के, उसमें अच्छा ग्रोथ हमें मिला है। तो इसलिए ये कहना है कि ट्रेड वॉर से हमें कितना नुकसान हो रहा है, क्या हो रहा है, ये इसके बारे में अभी इसके बारे में अभी कोई भी निष्कर्ष निकालना उचित नहीं रहेगा। हम अपना हमारा जो डोमेस्टिक जो सेक्टर है, और वो डोमेस्टिक सेक्टर में जो रेवेन्यू कलेक्शंस है, वो एक हम लोगों ने एक अनुमान लगाया था, उसी के बेसिस पे वो उस तरीके से चल रहा है क्वार्टर टू क्वार्टर।
Yes.
Ma'am, this is Anjali Ojha from Go News. Ma'am, for the aim of achieving a $5 trillion economy in the next 5 years, a target of 8% GDP growth per year was set. Ma'am, do you see the present slowdown as a roadblock or any problem in achieving that target for this fiscal?
Well, at the moment, no, because as Revenue Secretary has explained, you didn't respond to that. Okay. The revenue generation, at least in the first quarter, as was explained by the Revenue Secretary, is showing signs of only growing and not falling. So I don't think there is a difficulty, but of course we are responding to industry and industry's needs because they want to keep the momentum as was before. And with this response and with more response which we are yet to announce in the next few weeks, I'll be doing that. I expect that the industry should be able to comfortably grow as they plan.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am,
Just one second.
ma'am,
You said
Just
you'll
one sec, please. Yeah.
you will review the enhanced surcharge or HNIs on the 75th Independence Day. What's the reasoning behind it, and is the revenue implication that big? And the second question is, what was the thought process behind imposing this enhanced surcharge in the budget, and what changed in the 45 days that led to the withdrawal?
देखिए, जो इन्हांस सरचार्ज लगाया गया था, ये एक हाई नेटवर्थ जो इंडिविजुअल्स हैं, उन इंडिविजुअल्स पे लगाया गया था। और जो हमारा जो डायरेक्ट टैक्स का जो टैक्सेशन सिस्टम है, उसमें कंपनी एक तरीके से उस पर टैक्सेशन होता है, जो एक इंडिविजुअल नॉन कंपनी जो कैटेगरी है, उसी कैटेगरी में जिनका भी हाई नेटवर्थ है, उस पर ये सरचार्ज लगा था। उस इंडिविजुअल की कैटेगरीज में ये भी देखा गया कि एक सर्टेन सेक्टर है जिसमें इन्वेस्टमेंट होता है, और जो सरचार्ज लगा उस सरचार्ज में उनका अपना इनकम होगा, सैलरी इनकम होगा, बिजनेस इनकम होगा, या कुछ इंटरेस्ट से इनकम होगा, तरह तरह के इनकम हो सकते हैं, प्रॉपर्टी बेचने से जो इनकम हो सकता है उस पर इनकम हो सकता है। तो जब इंडस्ट्रीज़ के साथ जब हम कंसल्टेशन कर रहे थे, तो उन्होंने ये हमें बताया कि इस सरचार्ज से, और अब जो हमारे देश में अभी जो इकोनॉमी में कैपिटल लाने की ज़रूरत है, और उस कैपिटल के लिए हमें उसके लिए एक इंसेंटिव देने की ज़रूरत है। तो उसी इंसेंटिव देने का जो हमारा जो एक ऑब्जेक्टिव था, उसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए ये जो शॉर्ट टर्म और लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन ऑन इक्विटीज़ एंड देन द यूनिट्स, उसके जो सरचार्ज लगाया था, उसको हम लोगों ने उसको विड्रॉ कर दिया है। तो हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव ये था कि बूस्ट द कैपिटल मार्केट और उसमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इन्वेस्टमेंट आए और उससे इकोनॉमी को ज़्यादा मदद मिले.
मैम
Ma'am, Ishwarya Paliwal here from India Today.
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, Ishwarya here from India Today. Ma'am, you are saying that the banks have now agreed that they will pass on the benefits. So from when can we expect that to happen? Also, ma'am, the CA has time and again said that the government does not believe in giving out stimulus packages. But the industry at the moment is eagerly waiting for something to come from the government because they are saying that that's when they believe that the economy and they will be able to help the economy get back on the track. So these two questions.
See, as regards the rate cut to be passed by the banks, you know, it all depends on the cost of money, which is savings and also fixed deposits, on the basis of which they fix their MCLR. So within that play, the rate cut transmission generally takes 5 to 6 months. So they've already started. They've all reached 30 basis point on an average. This will further get increased, and banks have their meetings every month to review this. So as and by their meetings takes place, they will keep passing it. But at the same time, the repo-linked products would immediately give benefits to basically the home buyers, vehicles, consumption. And as and when the rate is cut by the RBI, that much amount will automatically pass on the repo rate linked products. So now the customers have two options, to go for a fixed rate or to go for a repo rate as they decide. So that's the thing. And as regards the investment and the stimulus you asked, and the question which was asked earlier also, the resolve to reach the 5 trillion economy is very, very firm. And whatever measures have to be taken to that in the contextual needs will keep coming. That was the very last slide, saying that we will keep consulting all the sectors, build the infrastructure pipeline, change the money as was done through the bond markets and others, all parameters put together, develop a credit guarantee enhancement scheme. All that put together will remain alive to the situation with a firm resolve to reach to that economy, and if there are bumps, we're all there to sort of face them.
We'll add to the stimulus part. See, what is, people tend to look stimulus more in terms of some doles or some money giving away, or somebody says that through budget we should give out something. The entire reform thrust of today, the announcement by Finance Minister, has been very structural, not responding to any cyclical requirements. And she has tried to correct the broken pipe between the banks to HFCs, NBFCs, and other asset classes on one side. The examples of this is the partial guarantee scheme, which has already been put in place. Then there is a credit enhancement organization, which again enables the asset quality to be improved so that banks and other bond market can possibly fund it. And also the interest rate cut, which allows the liquidity to flow. The problem has been the velocity of money, so that more transactions start happening and the money flows, consumption takes place because somebody borrows, and so on and so forth. On the other side, the boost to capital, especially by the cut in FPI, on which so many questions were there today, enables larger flow into equity market. And on the third side, there has been the enabling of debt flow into the bond market. So this is the overall context of the stimulus package.
Okay, we'll take the last question with the mic. Yeah.
मैम, आपके फर्स्ट स्लाइड में 2016 और अभी तक 2019 तक 1% का ये कमी आई है इकोनॉमिक में, तो इसको क्या माना जाए? ये जीएसटी और नोटबंदी का इफेक्ट है। दूसरा, सरकार आपकी जो जितने भी ये नीति निर्धारक, चाहे नीति आयोग के हों या रिजर्व बैंक के हों, वो जब पद से हटते हैं तो सरकार की नीतियों की आलोचना ही करते हैं, ऐसा क्यों है?
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Just one announcement. The copy of the presentation would be available on the PIB website.
Okay, now that's the set of announcements. For a lot of viewers who are tuned in right now, we'll get you a battery of experts to try and figure out what to make of some of these announcements. Of course, a lot of stories will be there on our website, bloombergquint.com as well. So tomorrow, day after, and even on Monday morning, you can, of course, log in and view all of that. But let me just lay out the 3 or 4 that stood out for me from a market perspective. The FPI surcharge has been restored to pre-budget levels for 111A and 112A, which covers most equities and mutual funds. Also, simplified KYC procedures for FPIs will be introduced soon. However, the surcharge for HNI, domestic HNI investors continues. I think I heard the FM say that 75th anniversary, essentially at some point of time in the future, this will be reviewed, but for now, that stays. Now, somebody who knows this inside out joins us right now for his take. We'll get you a battery of people who are associated with equity markets. Vaibhav Sanghvi, co-CEO of Avendus Capital, as well as Ajay Bagga, market veteran, join us right now on the show. Vaibhav, if you can hear me, let's start off with you first. This was a long pending thing that all of us were hoping for. It's finally come about. How positive for the markets?
No, of course it is positive, and it's a very positive step taken by the Honorable Finance Minister and the whole Finance Ministry team. Having said that, only one caveat here is basically we have only seen that the surcharge is out from capital gains perspective and not from all the category 3 AIFs. So category 3 AIFs also do generate business income, right? So all the long short funds and the hedge funds actually, would still be charged at a higher surcharge. Having said that, this, at least for the FPI, it's a welcome step. So we are waiting for the clarity on that as well.
What's the clarity that you would hope for, Vaibhav? What would make it completely favorable?
So the only clarity we are hoping for is basically that all the category 3 AIFs, irrespective of kind of income they generate, would be out of the surcharge. At this point in time, as we speak or as we know, it is restricted to capital gains, which is long-term and short-term, but not to the business income. And in a category 3 AIF, some income is in the nature of derivatives income, which is treated as business income. Okay. So that is the clarity which we seek for.
But does this take care of some bit of the issues that were there for most FPIs? The move that have been done till now without the clarity that you want?
Absolutely. For most of the FPIs, it does take care purely because derivatives income for FPIs is treated as capital gains, but not for the domestic investors. So it does take care of all the FPIs.
Now, Ajay Bagga is with us as well. And Ajay, we were talking about how the markets may find it favorable if they believe that the government is listening. Did you get a sense from what the government has, or the FinMin has said right now, that they are listening into what the markets and maybe the MSME space had to say? Because a lot of announcements with regards to refunds, GST refunds stuck, etc., with MSMEs or any other company being announced.
Yeah, I think 3 big things came out, Neeraj. One is, how you can destroy a market for very little gains. The Revenue Secretary, when he was asked in the media interaction that how much will be the foregoing of tax based on this surcharge being removed on the capital gains part, he said 1,400 crores.
Yeah.
So, compare that with the 17 lakh crores of market cap that has got eroded from July 5th onwards. And you realize, that it is so critical that you understand all the moving parts before you take a decision like this. So it is very good. Sentimentally, it's very good that somebody's understood it finally, that the gains were very little and the losses for the nation were too huge. That's the one thing. Second, economic rationale has come into decision making. That is a very positive thing, Neeraj. The way the address was done, the depth into which people have gone. Third, there is hope that the FM herself mentioned that 2 more such pronouncements will be made, maybe one midweek next week and one a week later. So there is hope for more decisions to come through. September 20th is the GST meeting. Hopefully some decisions come through there as well. But overall, it is a start. I look at the glass as half full, and I would say markets would welcome it. But the journey is fraught with a lot of issues. I think textiles needs to be addressed. That's 10 crore employment sitting in textiles. You have construction with state governments going back on negotiated and written contracts. You have real estate. So I think a lot more will need to be done, but it's a good first step.
Okay, Vaibhav, just one quick follow-up. The auto space was expecting a lot of moves. She said that the GST cut, the GST Council prerogatives, the scrappage policy and GST cut are the big things. They haven't come out. What has come out is the registration fees being deferred. Good enough, or would you believe that there is more needed?
I think again a step in the right direction, purely because the depreciation rate also has been increased, which again will help some amount of aiding of demand, as well as your government freeze on buying new vehicles also has been taken out. So incremental steps are positive, but the kind of momentum we need, I think scrappage policy and actually increasing the disposable income in the hands of a consumer is needed. And when I mean increasing the income in the hands of the consumer is by either reducing actually their income tax rate and or for a sustained period of time would surely help. But that's a long ask, to be very honest.
Okay, Vaibhav, we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for taking the time out. Ajay, just stay on. I just want one more question, but a lot's happening on the economy as well, and I believe Shubhda Rao is also with us.
Yeah, no, we'll just do a quick conversation on the economy. It looks like they're focused on sector-specific measures, and they're not looking at any large fiscal stimulus. The sector-specific measures also sort of dispersed. Do they have some impact? We'll ask that question to Shubhda Rao, Chief Economist at Yes Bank. Shubhda, evening. Thanks so much for joining us. So, individual sectors which are stressed, trying to put the pieces together to say that, okay, let the economy not worsen any further. Is that the way to see it?
Yes, I think, Ira, the first thing that we note is that the government has begun to address the supply side of the issues that were staring at us, particularly on, removing the constraints to improve the credit flows, the fund flows, and so on. So today's set of measures, I would believe, are more addressing comprehensively, to the extent possible in the first round, the supply side of issues. One is, of course, the three key immediate positives would be the removal of surcharge, the bank recapitalization to get front-loaded, and the third one would be, more importantly, the MSMEs.
Just allow me to interrupt, because we've got RC Bhargava of Maruti Suzuki on the line. I just need to take a couple of questions with him, and then I promise we will come back to you. Mr. Bhargava, thanks so much for joining in. You've been very candid that you probably don't expect too much from the government, and maybe the government can't do too much for the auto space, but they have given out a couple of announcements, registration fees deferred, and they said that the scrappage policy and the GST cut, which are the big things, not come out thus now, might come later on. Your initial reaction to what you've just heard?
I think there have been some very positive things which were within the scope of what government could do, and they have done what I think was possible. And it's very, very heartening that the finance minister heard the auto industry and has responded so quickly to what was suggested from us. But there are a couple of things which are very important which need to be looked at. The sentiment for purchase of automobiles is a major thing. And the announcements by the finance minister in very clear terms have made it absolutely evident to people that IC vehicles are not vehicles which are going out or something is going to happen to them in the near future. The decision that government will immediately start buying cars, and these will be IC cars, sends a very strong message to the people that the policy relating to IC vehicles is very positive. And I think that's a big step which has been taken. The financing costs have been brought down. That's the other thing. Because registration fees and all that is, yes, all done. But more important, for the long term, are the arrangements which have been made for the financing of cars, which will come down and which will be linked to the repo rates. I think that's a very major step and which has long-term implications. The ability of finance officials bank officials to take decisions without worrying about vigilance and other things, and the mechanism to make it happen. That's a very long-term and a very, very important step which has been taken, whose implications are huge. I think that's a very positive step.
True.
So when these steps get taken and which are going to affect the economy as a whole, the auto sector is bound to benefit.
Okay, just one final word, Mr. Bhargava. I mean, maybe the GST cut may or may not come because it's the GST Council's prerogative. She maintained that. But if indeed something around the scrappage policy gets announced next week itself, which is well, seemingly likely, or maybe in 10 days from now, how big a fillip would that be?
So scrappage policy will immediately give a fillip to demand because of the scrappage of old vehicles. But it all depends on the details of the policy and of the infrastructure which exists for implementing it. It's not easy to suddenly implement a scrappage policy. You may announce the policy, but the implementation will take time. But again, a scrappage policy announcement itself will help you change sentiment. I think that's the important part.
Yes, it is. Great. Mr. Bhargava, thank you so much. Sorry. Yeah, please finish your point, sir.
One last point I was making. The real step which I'm hoping will now be taken will be by some of the state governments who have increased road tax recently. And I hope they see the approach of the central government and understand that they have also to help in reviving industry. And they also roll back, like registration charges, the road taxes which they have imposed recently.
Okay, well, let's see if that happens. Mr. Bhargava, I hope somebody's listening to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us today. I know Jabagga is with us, but Shubhda, you were replying to Ira's question to you.
Yes. Yes, so I think, auto, of course, they've tried to enhance demand, as Mr. Bhargava was also saying, that, the whole lifting of the ban of the purchases of cars by the government. More importantly, I think increasing the depreciation, which renders a car completely, ready for next round is within 3 years. Earlier, it was 5 years. So that itself would also bring in some demand. As was being earlier said, once a more detailed scrappage policy taken on board, that would also, and lastly the assurance that through the deferment of the BS4 vehicles up to March 2020, and also the registration being deferred right up to June 2020, all these are demand enhancing measures for the auto sector. But to a large set, a comprehensive set of supply side constraints getting eased, let's not forget that we do not have completely unlimited recourse to the stimulus in terms of outright cash injection than what has been announced in the budget currently at government's disposal, particularly when the revenue has been slow to come by the time we still close the first half of the year. So it was important for the government to listen on the ground what were the constraints that were limiting the flows, and that is what has been a very, very positive development today, that this appears to be the finance minister has taken seriously all the concerns on board and has begun to address this. As I said, the near upfront first set of measures that we believe will bring in some growth kicker should be the the PSU recapitalization, the quick clearing of the Gst refunds through the MSMEs to the MSMEs, and also improving the sentiment through the FPI route. A 3.3 billion outflow since budget on equity side was clearly getting to be a point of concern, and all these seem to be getting addressed with the promise of more to come. I think there has been a pleasant surprise as compared to the past, where expectations used to typically ride much higher than the actual delivered promises. But today has been a different day. We've seen a set of measures which actually come closer to the expectations that seemed on hindsight running ahead.
Shubha, two quick questions. So, both the Reserve Bank of India and the government now, and even in the budget actually, seem to be banking on this let's revive credit flow to actually get the economy growing. And in that, it's not just the quantum of money flowing to the economy, but also the price of money flowing to the economy. Do those measures taken together do anything, you think? Absolutely. Because this external benchmarking, I still want to see it see how it plays out on the ground before saying, yay, we've got better transmission.
Yes. No, true, absolutely. It's work in progress. We need to see how it actually translates into a higher, improved demand. But it's a beginning that, linking it to repo rate, particularly the consumption of personal loans, that it brings to effect the cost of these purchases lower is a beginning. But as I said, this is one part of measures. The bigger issue is how do you put money into the hands of people to buoy and boost the demand side of story, and that is something which is going to be a longer playing story, because we need to see all those cash transfers, all the rural economy monies that have been promised to see the light of the day in earlier part of the FY20, so that some demand is more visible, particularly starting the festive season, October, December. So I would say, Ida, that these coming 40 days are going to be very, very critical as to how both the demand side and the supply side are fashioned to bring in growth, at least in the H2 of the fiscal year. Remember, the first half is nearly significant slowing of growth momentum from 5.8 of the previous quarter. The first quarter we are penciling in a 5.5% growth of GDP. The second quarter is not likely to have any significant upside. So it leaves a lot of hope and expectations towards the second half of the year, which, if the government really does deliver on these measures over the next 30 to 40 days, I would think there would be at least an arrest of the expectation of a continuing downturn or downdraft in terms of growth momentum. But having said, I think most of us analysts have looked to revise our GDP much lower. In fact, in our earlier show with you on the Monetary Policy Day, we did say that RBI's 6.9 GDP for the year looks a little tad ambitious, and we were all in the process of marking down because of the first half of a fairly concerning slowdown of the economic momentum. So 40 days and then we are all set. Monsoon has been positive. Oil has once again become a more supportive factor. If the consumption loans continue to get lower, that will to some extent help the demand side. But we would all be looking more closely as to how these measures on the ground translate into some high frequency numbers over the next 40 days.
All right, Shraddha, you preempted and answered my last question, so I'll leave it at that. Look forward to your detailed analysis over the course of the next few days. Neeraj, I'll give it back to you.
Thanks a lot for that, Ida. So, well, that's essentially the sum and substance on the economic side. Now, the two or three things that you got to monitor from a market's perspective. One, that the FPI issue, and there's some clarity in it, as Vaibhav was saying, but the FPI surcharge has been restored, in the FM's word, to pre-budget levels. Two, a second announcement with regards to home buyers is coming as early as next week. This is again in the FM's words, so that's the other bit. A third set of announcements could be made soon, in the week following the next one, so that is something that you want to watch out for. And while registration fees have been deferred to June 2020, the GST cut is GST Council's prerogative, so don't look at that. Scrappage policy and will be something that will come out as well. Ajay Bagga is back with us. Mr. Bagga, thank you so much for being patient with us today. Now, a couple of questions. Firstly, with regards to autos, now the opinion amongst the market people as well is divided about whether or not something needs to be done ASAP, something as big as a GST cut or no. Now, that is the GST Council's prerogative. If indeed there is some tinkering with the scrappage policy and this registration fees deferred to June 2020, does it lift merely the spirits, or do you think it has the power to lift sales in light of the fact that we are on cusp of the festive season?
Yeah, I think the latter, Neeraj, you put it well. See, the monsoon has now gone into surplus, so that is positive for the Rabi crop. That is positive sentiments. Second major thing is liquidity returning to the markets. Already you have overnight 2 lakh crores of liquidity that RBI has put in. It's out of 110 basis points, about 35 basis points so far has been transmitted. But as the festive season comes in, you will see subventions from dealers as well as manufacturers being added to the rate cuts. So you will have good EMI offers from the banks. NBFCs will be largely missing, apart from the top 4-5 NBFCs who can get financing. And that has been the big issue for autos, because NBFC credit has fallen about 30% year on year post the ILFS crisis. We are seeing a real crisis in the NBFC, and they are big on lenders. They are as much as 23% of the total credit of the country. So out of the 23%, if it falls 30%, that's a big hole that the banks have to make up. And that's why the overall credit in the country is 10% or below. The festive season, subvention from manufacturers, discounts on BS4 vehicles, the enhanced depreciation which will be used by corporates to change vehicles, to do tax planning. I think all that will lead to a feel-good factor. Scrappage policy, we'll have to wait and watch how well it comes in. Does it become a cash for clunkers? Just to give you an idea, in the US, from as much as 18 million vehicles sold in 2007, it fell off to 9 million. It was a 50% drop. But within 2 years, thanks to this cash for clunkers and other liquidity measures, the automobile numbers came back to 15 million within 2 years. So that's the possibility on auto. It's a very stimulus,
leading industry.
Yeah, which really responds very fast. That's why we call it a high-frequency indicator. The moment you take care of the sentiments and you provide some liquidity, people take a chance in buying. So
let's see.
I think it could be positive. Let's wait and watch. But again,
I have a bigger question though, Mr. Bagga, and that's my final question for this show. We know that the economy is facing issues. Now, if indeed this liquidity freeze and money back to SMEs and MSMEs and other businesses helps recover some bit of the liquidity squeeze, it's great. Time will tell. But the economy as of now is facing a squeeze. China today has said that they will retaliate with tariffs on the US. This one time or this set of measures that have come out thus far, will they prove to be slightly long-term or medium-term in nature in that sense? Or do you think it will be a day-lived rally, and then if the markets go back to basics, which is looking at the trade war and the issues thereof, and the fact that the Indian income is hurting as well, the trajectory is downwards? What's your estimate as of now?
Trajectory is downwards, Neeraj, and always follow the money, follow the FIIs. FIIs have been so hugely short, and the Indian retailer foolishly has been long. They have got butchered in July and August. FIIs remain short. There's a huge overhang in the market, and that is global, that is economic, that is corporate earnings, and that needs a very strong revival package, which probably will come in February. It's too much to expect midterm, and but all I will say is this is sentimentally positive. It gives you a boost for a day or two, but it doesn't change the fundamentals. That's the big issue. And unless you see FIs changing those shorts that they are holding in the market, which they have consistently held right after the elections, I don't see this market rallying very fast.
Okay, Ajay Bagga, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for taking the time out and giving us your wisdom. Well, that's the view from Ajay Bagga as a market veteran. Vaibhav Sanghvi saying that he needs some clarity on whether Category 3 AIFs have been granted the necessary leeways or no. But this is sentimentally positive. From what I read on social media, the SGX Nifty, which had corrected a bit when China slapped tariffs on the US, recovered a bit of that as well. So interesting moves there. Let's wait and watch what happens on Monday morning. In all probability, if I remember Samir Arora's interaction with me, that if the markets get a feeling that the government is listening to what the market wants to say, the markets will rally. We'll probably have a rally. We have a rally at our hand in all probability on Monday morning, at least in the Indian markets. Let's see if that lasts for a durable period of time or it is short-lived. But thanks so much for tuning into this coverage. More news and updates on Bloomberg Quint. Do log on to the website and try and read all about what the finance minister has said. Lots of stories around that, the nuances and the details. Thanks so much for tuning into this broadcast.